Welcome to the Bayou. Welcome back to episode 3 of Building the Bayou. In this episode, I'm going to be building New Orleans French Quarter. So let's get this party started.
I guess let me start the video. In this episode, like I mentioned in episode 2, it's going to be a huge focus on building French Quarter, which is the shops and restaurants part of the Bayou. There's also going to be one small indoor ride that's going to be featured in French Quarter. It's called the Swamp Hopper. It's nothing crazy. Initially, I had the idea of it actually being kind of like an indoor-outdoor ride where some parts of it's indoor, some parts of it's outdoor. However, with the space, it didn't really work. There's definitely going to be a lot of speed building of buildings, and I was trying to get some facts or information to kind of share about French Quarter. Then I'll try to give you some facts and some information about the actual New Orleans Square in Disneyland, as Walt Disney World doesn't have a New Orleans Square, but they do have a resort called Port Orleans French Quarter. But there's also Port Orleans Riverside. One of my first buildings are inspired by an iconic building in French Quarter. I don't know the name of it, but I'll try to put up a picture. And a lot of these buildings are going to be inspired by or actual copies of some of the buildings that you will find in French Quarter. French Quarter is basically almost like the downtown of New Orleans. Before they actually had like a real downtown, it was actually where the first settlement of New Orleans was. What's the word when there's people living somewhere, but then you actually take that place and then you claim it as your own? Whatever that term is, I'm sure I'll put it up somewhere. But the French took that area, there were already natives living there, and they made it into Louisiana. And then that city that French Quarter is in right now was New Orleans. There's a really great video if you guys do want to watch it. I'm going to try to link it below. I was watching it to try to get some information and some inspiration of the architecture. A lot of mine is actually just inspired by pictures that I found and pictures of New Orleans Square and Disneyland. I just love in general all the little nooks and crannies though that you can find in cities. Plus, as you've noticed in my theme park Italian Adventure Resort, there's a lot of buildings. I do find architecture and landscaping pretty interesting, and honestly I feel like my park almost looks like a mini city, less of an actual theme park, because there's not a lot of roller coasters that you can see, or if they do exist they're inside or they're strategically placed so that they don't look too much like a roller coaster. Just don't want my park to look like a spaghetti park. If you don't know what that is, I can post a little picture. Main buildings I also wanted to include were Tiana's Palace, not Tiana's Place, which I actually had someone tell me what the difference is. I used to always think that it should have been Tiana's Place because in the movie Princess and the Frog, she's holding up a little poster that her dad gave her that says Tiana's Place. Essentially, the explanation is Tiana's Place is the vision that she had for the restaurant that she would have opened up with her father before he passed away, and Tiana's Palace is the restaurant that she actually made into reality with Prince Naveen and her family and Luis and everyone that she met along the way. I always thought it was interesting, but now I actually know. In this particular park, Tiana's Palace is actually just a facade. There's no actual restaurant because I wanted to use, let me look it up real quick. It's the LaBeouf Mansion, which is basically Charlotte LaBeouf and her dad, Big Daddy. They live in that mansion, and I just thought it was a very beautiful facade, and I know that most of the area is kind of set in French Quarter, but I also wanted to make it kind of inspired by the Garden District in some places too, hence me also putting a little garden in front of the mansion, which you will see later. The LaBeouf Mansion is going to be the main restaurant for the area. There's actually going to be 3 total restaurants in the Bayou. One of them, which you guys will not see, but I did add it in. I forgot to record me building it. There is the Chateau Magnolia, which is the main restaurant, which is the LaBeouf Mansion that you're seeing, or you will be seeing later. I don't know which part of the video I'm editing in by now. Magnolia is inspired by the interior of Tiana's Palace, so it's almost like a hybrid of the two. The outside is inspired by LaBeouf, the inside is inspired by Tiana's Palace. There's also the Café du Beignet. If I can't pronounce some of these stuff, I'm not French, so I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it and there's some French viewers watching. watching and you're like, he said that wrong, I'm sorry, I'm not French. I'm trying my best here. I'm also gonna give you guys a fair warning. I am not a restaurant interior designer. If you guys look at like the build of the interiors of some of these restaurants and you're like, I'm sorry, that's not my specialty. I mean, architecture itself is not my specialty. It's just something that I have a passion for. I'm not saying that I'm the best architect or I know how to build the best looking buildings. I'm trying, and I try to use references. It's even harder for me when it comes to restaurants because there's so many little details of what make a restaurant feel like a restaurant, and it's really hard to do inside this game because you don't have a lot of small parts, and if you add too much things in one spot, it reaches an item limit, and I don't want to put too much detail into something that most people won't even notice. Most people just kind of go on the rides in this game. They don't really care about restaurants. The second restaurant, which you'll see later, is that Café du Beignet, which is just a little cafe for beignets and coffee. It actually turned out a lot nicer than I thought it would. It has a very industrial but cozy feeling, and it's actually part of the gift shop, which is Bourbon Street Boutique. Because this is French Quarter, there's obviously Bourbon Street and Royal Street and all the streets that make up it. There's no specific street, it's just Bourbon Street is a very popular street. I feel like this video is a little all over the place and I'm trying my best. It's just, it's a lot of just architecture. It's a lot of building of buildings, and I'm trying to put in as much information as I can. If you guys are watching and you're like, what is he talking about, and the video is not matching up, I'm sorry. I'm trying to watch it on the TV. I don't know if you guys ever noticed, or maybe I just cut it out a lot. I'm actually looking up because I have the TV playing the speed build for me, so I know what I'm talking about. It's a little bit of an interesting setup, but then I also get sidetracked sometimes, or I just jump between different builds or different parts of the build. An important part, making sure that everything flows together. Even though it's a really small street and I'm calling it French Quarter, I try to make as many corners to kind of make you feel like it's a lot bigger than it is. Plus making the outside of that indoor ride, which was initially supposed to be an outdoor one, into a facade of more buildings was kind of like a little idea I decided to have because I felt like it added more to the French Quarter. It would have been a lot harder to make it look like it's one facade of buildings and then the other half is just trees. It definitely would have looked fake. Plus it would have been hard to make a roof over it. And now this is the part where I actually get to building the interior. This is a pretty long video. I might have to speed up the speed builds a little bit more. There is a secret that's above Café du Beignet and Bourbon Street Boutique. It's actually a little Club 33-esque lounge. I do have a lounge in, I almost said Frontierland and Freedom Land, kind of the inspiration for this lounge too. But also if you go to New Orleans Square in Disneyland, they have Club 33, which the second floor of all the New Orleans style buildings are actually a lounge. That's for an exclusive club called Club 33. It's a little like infamous, I guess, because it's very hush hush, or it was hush hush many years ago. And to this day, it's a bit hard to figure out how you get into the club and how you get initiated into the club. When I was visiting New Orleans Square, I did see kind of where like the entrance for it is. I guess they used to have almost like a courtyard that you could hang out and see them go into, but they filled it in, made it more of a building. For mine, I just wanted to do a lounge with some couches, some armchairs. I made a little bar. I made a bed just because it's reminiscent of the other lounge that I have in Freedom Land, which is literally just under the mountain. This is obviously not going to be accessible to the NPCs or like the people visiting the park if you were to think of it as like a real park. No, it's definitely real. It's a real park, guys. It's just for my friends. It's for the people watching that want to visit my park. So far, if I'm remembering correctly, there are 4 secret lounges in the park now. You guys saw me when I built the Galactic Outpost one. You didn't get to see where the Freedom Land one is, but if you ever visit and you want to see, I can show you where it's at. There's also a secret lounge inside Ghostly Peaks, and then now there's one inside the Bayou. And I could have swore there's a 5th one. I mean, there are other secrets throughout the park. Oh no, yeah, there definitely is a 5th one. That one is inside Enchanted Alley. That was actually one of the first lounges I made, and it's kind of like the big secret. The section that you didn't get to see on the screen screen. There's also a cafe slash meet and greet slash lounge that's inside Bayou Falls. It's technically supposed to be just accessible when you exit the ride, but you technically can do it even before you get on the ride. It's a little Tiana's meet and greet, which I'll try to put up a picture. I made a few tables and it's supposed to feel like you're inside a little bayou, almost like a little hut. I don't know. It feels very reminiscent of like Critter Country or Critter Co-op, which is at Magic Kingdom. I kind of wish I did a time lapse of me building Tiana because she actually turned out a lot better than I thought she would, and she's actually the best looking character I built. I know that I said that it was Briar Fox, and I think that Tiana actually looks a little bit better because it's also the best looking person I've ever made. Kind of missed opportunity there for me not filming it, but essentially that's kind of the entire build of the Bayou. So there's the Bayou Falls, which is the main attraction. It's actually one of the best looking log rides I've ever made. I know I have Splash Coast. Don't really know what I'm going to end up doing with that ride. It's probably going to stay. Same thing with the Amalfi Grand Prix. Just I feel like the whole Amalfi area needs a little bit of a facelift or a bit of a refurbishment because there's two rides. They're all kind of like crammed in, small, but I'm continuing to try to improve that area. I feel like I'm sidetracking at this point. After Bayou Falls, there's also the Swamp Hopper, which is a little indoor ride. It's just something cheap for the kids. I don't know. I wanted to try to maximize the amount of rides that I could fit in, and I didn't want to do yet another restaurant or another gift shop because doing gift shops and restaurants in this game is kind of hard, at least to me, especially with the gift shops. If you saw like the one at Bourbon Street Boutique, that one I put in a lot of detail because I had to make a little custom stuff that goes on the shelf. I also made the little dress that Charlotte as a girl wears. That was a little homage to Princess and the Frog. It's just a lot of work to make interior stuff, especially since you're working with blocks. To me personally, once I'm done building the outside, I almost don't want a furniture in the inside because there's no furniture that's pre-built in the game besides a table with some chairs, and that's only locked to a grid. And then there's also shelving, but you don't want to put just empty shelving because then it makes it look like it's a ghost town. I hope that this video was pretty informative. I look forward to seeing you guys on a quick little video that I'll be posting separately. That's just a little grand tour of the Bayou. I've decided that it probably makes sense to just do the tour videos as a separate video. It's easy for someone who just wants to see the completed land instead of having to watch the entire speed build, which I know YouTube revenue or YouTube monetization, which I'm not because I don't get enough views, would be like, you should definitely make it into a longer video, make it into a 30-minute video so you can fit as many ads as you can. But I personally don't find that interesting. I mean, I love to watch a YouTube video that's 30 minutes long. All right, see you guys. I'm pretty sure it didn't film anything.